in, everyone. So here's what we're doing today. We are taking one of the most awkward, compliance-heavy, client-facing moments in the business, account opening, and we are making it digital, clean, private, and professional. So we're eliminating the interrogation of when you're sitting face to face with the client and you're asking them some of the most sensitive information of their life. And we are replacing the clipboard with something that feels more future forward. And we're building it together right now. And by the time you're done, you'll have something that you can actually use. And, if you're worried about compliance, I feel like suitability is one of the biggest things that we hear about. That is what we're addressing today. We're going to make it digestible. And the technology is there. You guys have made it to session 3 already. I hope that as we progress in this series, it seems more and more relatable or something accomplishable at least, where, we were just describing things in plain language and the software, the platform is building it on our behalf. And of course, every single output, requires or should require, I would say as a best practice, at least have two eyes on it internally, where every single output is getting reviewed internally before we make it client facing. But nonetheless, it is something that is taking a lot of work off of your plate and making sure that, that process is seamless. So if you have not already, please log into your PreciseFP platform. We will give you guys time to log in right now, and then you feel free to follow along as I'm going through today's session. And if you haven't yet, also open up the session companion guide. I'll go ahead and share my screen and we'll jump into that companion guide. Hopefully you have found that this has been valuable in regards to complementing all of the things that we cover in these 1 hour sessions. We will go down, and for a while in the first two sessions, we were really right here in this middle part, and now we're going to progress forward to the build it yourself method, where we're going to build a form from scratch. And we're going to do this even more in the next couple sessions. And if you go down toward the middle, you'll notice that there's this accordion. We want to choose on session 3, and we're going to be working right in here today. I do want to point out this prompt that we're working on today has been broken out into 2 parts. And I was testing and testing and testing this, trying to do it all in one prompt. And I just didn't like the output that was happening. So I'm going to break it out into 2 prompts so that way we're getting the output that we want. And you'll notice it says part 1 here and part 2 there. Just know that this is where we want to pull things from. All right. So make sure you're logged in, make sure you have your companion guide. As some extra credit, if we have any people in the room that like to, go above and beyond, if you have a new account opening platform, open that as well in a second window. And I feel like the benefit of using PreciseFP and AI in general is that you can mimic the exact order that your new account platform is in. And I know I worked with an office, Cornerstone Wealth Advisors, Michael Quattrocchi, Chase Walker, and Chuck Walker in Florida, and they have something that they like to call the operations stress test. And what they do is they match their PreciseFP forms to the new account portal, screen for screen. It looks exactly, because the operations team can work both side by side without jumping around. And your operations team is the one that's living with this form every day. So build it to their order and not yours. So definitely, start with one and start perfecting it and perfecting it over and over. All right, so kind of the end goal of today is typically when you're going to open an account for a client, there's a specific set of information you're required to have on file. So it's not just a formality, but it is going to drive every recommendation you make. So simple things like tax rate, liquidity needs, investment experience, time horizon, beneficiaries, things like that. That's the data that's going to meet those suitability requirements. And we're going to build that form just so you know the end goal. All right. So I'm going to log into my PreciseFP2. I have that open here. And let me just check on the question here. Where's the form builder form? Yep, I'm going to show that right now. And um, Brian, reach out to our support team and but if it's not turned on, that's definitely you could learn about AI in general in this session, but it wouldn't apply to your platform specifically. All right, and I'm going to check the questions every, 6 minutes-ish. So if you do throw in a question, I'll be able to see that as well. All right. So before I go into this form particularly, I just want you to think of something for a moment because I'm going to build this form from scratch just for my series. But if you want to collect or put in front of your client any sort of information that's already been gathered, because right now we're pretty far in the sales process, so we should have already gathered, a wealth of information on this person. So I want you to think, do you want this next form to have that information in it? Do you want it to have their driver's license number, their employer, their identity details, address, things like that? Or are you okay kind of progressing and not putting that information in front of them to review or add anything missing or incorrect? Because if you do want to put that type of information in front of them again as like a page one, I would suggest to go to our template library and grab a form that you like, that first page. And there's one in there called Financial Fact Finder in the form library. And you could just pull that, delete all of the other pages, and start generating the new pages with us today. That's completely up to you. You're going to have to decide if you want to just start from, building on and asking these new questions, or if you want to put that old data in front of them as you ask these new questions. Like I said, for today's purposes, I'm going to build it from scratch. But nonetheless, every time you use PreciseFP, you are going to have that form pre-filled. So if you do choose to put, their name, their address, their driver's license number, their spouse information, emails, things like that, they're never actually filling in that information. If you already have it on file, it will always be pre-filled, which is nice. So they might just take a second, glance over it, and move on to page two. But for me, I'm going to go ahead and create one from new. So I'm going to go to templates on the left and go to my templates. So if you're in PreciseFP, go to templates on the left and choose on my templates. And I like to click on that paper icon again just to remove that sidebar. And I am going to click on the plus sign in the top right-hand corner and choose Generate using AI. So this is the first time in this series that we're going in this direction because typically we were taking a form that's in the form library and installing it and then enhancing it using AI, where today we are going to generate using AI from scratch. And like I said, in the future sessions, this really gets fancy where we're just going to say, hey, I have a 50-year-old client. I want to do a 50-year-old check-in form. And we're going to paste it right here and it's going to make it. But for today's session, we're going to just create just a blank one and then enhance it using AI, building the pages, just because the pages that we're going to build are so in depth. So I'll just choose to create a blank template. I'll go ahead and name this Suitability Form. And I'll categorize this as AI generated, and you can continue to fill out the other details as well. I'll just go ahead and leave those blank for now, and I'm going to leave that as high security because we are definitely gathering sensitive information that we want them to authenticate in order to enter into the platform and put in this information. So there's that suitability form. I'll go ahead and customize it, and you'll notice, it's very blank right now. And like I said, you might choose to pull a form from the form library and delete the pages you don't need and enhance it from there, but I'm just going to start from scratch. I'm going to go back over to our prompt guide here. And I want you to focus on the part one. If you go ahead and highlight this prompt, and I'll go ahead and paste it into the chat as well. So you have it there. But I'm going to copy this and I'm going to generate a new page using this prompt. All right, let me throw this in the chat as well. Oh, and the prompt is too long to throw in the chat. Let me see if I could put it in the Q&A. All right, so you're gonna have to go to the prompt guide to get it because it is too long for Zoom's chat. So go ahead and go to the prompt guide, copy this, and if I go back to PreciseFP, I'm going to use this button here in the top right-hand corner, the sparkle icon for generate using AI, because I want to create a new page using AI, and I'm going to paste in that prompt. Now, you'll notice right here, it is using 1876 out of 2000 available characters. And that is why I broke this out into two parts because it is so extremely detailed that I didn't want, certain fields to not be processed correctly. So I built this out into two separate prompts. All right. So once the AI does its generating, it's going to look like this. And remember, anything that you already have gathered, maybe you've already gathered their salary and their net worth, these things will be pre-filled when you do apply it to a contact. But you'll notice there are more in-depth questions here that is going to help you in those suitability recommendations. And what I absolutely love about that prompt that we created is you'll notice that there are these help statements that are complementing some of these fields because you kind of assume that your client is going to know exactly what you mean when you're asking them to share their annual expenses, but that definitely might not be the case. They might not know exactly what you're talking about, or when you get to some of the more technical items, they might need that help text to really understand what you're asking. So the prompt was able to create this. And if we go back to the tab here, you'll notice it is listed here as help with that colon, and it lists how we want to help them with that additional information. So even from this point forward, when you're building prompts, even use ChatGPT or Claude for this. You remember you can create things like this where you're asking a question and then you put help like that, and then put what you want to include, and it will build it into the form for you. And same thing here, maybe you don't need to collect bank institution name. You can just delete that right out. But many of these questions you'll notice are drop downs. So while I'm in this build view, I can't really see what the options it created. So I like to preview it out, and I'll go over to that page. And it was this one here. And you'll notice it lit up in red too, because in my prompt, you'll notice required is poured into it. So I told the prompt that I want these fields to be required, and you'll notice the machine did that for me. So the client technically cannot move forward until they make those selections. So tax rate is built in there as a drop down. That is such a time saver for clients. So, they are just choosing it from the drop down. Investment knowledge, they could just choose good, limited, excellent, none. Investment experience, yes. And I would even make this a visibility question where if they answer yes, maybe you want a list to appear, like a checkbox list that says investment in employer provided plans, in brokerage, in crypto, or whatever type of investment experience you want to know about. And then they can choose the options that they have experience in if you find that to be valuable. And then investment objectives, that's a fixed list. Investment purpose, that's a fixed list. Risk tolerance, this isn't a risk tolerance number. It's just kind of more general tags on risk tolerance. And then time horizon. And if they're like, I don't know what that means, you might want to put help text in there. Liquidity needs, all of that is listed here. So we took that prompt and it went ahead and built that for us. Oh, yes. Alicia's asking if a client was previously archived, will it still auto-generate previous information they provided? Yes. Archived is basically taking it from that client or prospect view and putting it into a different tab. But nonetheless, all of that information is still on file. So if you apply this form to their name, it will still pre-fill that information. Rebecca's asking, can you add into the prompt where to map the data to? By map, I mean to your connected CRM. So you wouldn't be doing it from this page. There's something in PreciseFP called the data set, and the data set is what shares information to your integrations. So you would want to build any of those suitability type questions here into the data set. So that way, when you do push it to Redtail, it would map over. But great question. Yes. David brings up the $1 million question here, and he's asking, once we collect the data using these templates, how do we get this data to dump into our broker dealer slash custodian form tools? So right now we don't integrate with any broker dealer or custodian platforms. So we are always looking to integrate. So if you can even bug your broker dealer about it, like, hey, I'm using PreciseFP, you guys need to integrate. I'm gathering all of the suitability questions for the new account opening, and I want that to feed right into the platform, whether it's, equipped or it's LPLs or whatever broker dealer you're using. The more you bug them about it, the more, they'll go ahead and make that integration. But as of now, I see offices having both open side by side. And like I said, you'll want to perfect PreciseFP to be in that exact order as a best practice, and then copying that over because it's not dumping as of right now. All right. Oh, Kimberly says, did you intentionally provide field names that already exist in the data set? How can we ensure these fields are linked to the data set? So we have made it so when you create a form using AI and it is using a field that's already in the data set, it is connecting. But just as, extra security or extra best practice, in your prompt, you can just say connect to the data set and it'll run that extra making sure that it's connected. but it will go ahead and link over to the data set. All right. So we did part one. Let's move over to part two. And same thing here, this might be way too much information or it might not be enough information. You'll want to kind of make that decision. And we'll go ahead and copy this. And what we're collecting next is trusted contact and beneficiary information. And same thing, be strategic here, maybe asking them all of these questions in addition to beneficiary and trusted contacts might be too much, it might be too little. You can kind of continue to assess and make decisions on whether that's something that you want. And you'll notice there is some help text that is included because of that prompt. So in the prompt, I literally wrote word for word what this trusted contact entails. So if you find that valuable, leave it. If you don't like it, remove it. But we're not right there in front of the client to explain to them what a trusted contact is, right? So we're building it into the form so they don't get stopped in the middle of it. All right, so we put all of the fields there got built on our behalf using that prompt. And I've even seen some offices add in another question here, like, is it okay to contact them? And they could choose yes or no just to kind of give you extra show that you are making sure that it's okay with them. And then here are the beneficiary details. And your clients are choosing percentage amounts if they are adding multiple. So they will need to make that percentage equal to 100%. And you'll see all of the information is there. And this is something that you might, share with the client annually to make sure that their beneficiaries are up to date. But I think that's a brilliant prompt that went ahead and created all of this information for us. And then you could just enhance it from here. And just to talk about what we've covered in the previous sessions, continue to enhance this form. Build out that welcome page using AI, build out that thank you page using AI, and you can make sure that from the beginning to the end, it is looking and feeling exactly like your brand and your colors, all of that. All right. John is asking, can I upload an already built suitability form we use internally and have the AI format it in the PreciseFP fields? Great question, John. Last week this was asked as well, and we don't allow you to take a already created PDF, upload it to PreciseFP, and it would, create that from that PDF. But my best practice is to open up a chat GPT or a Claude, share your PDF that's already established into the chat GPT or the Claude and ask it to create a prompt for you to mimic that exact form and then copy that prompt and put it into PreciseFP. And then, yes, it would take that exact form that you have, hopefully in that exact order with any help text that you have or any sort of text that you have in your form. And it would create it in a prompt that you can then create in PreciseFP, and it will go ahead and build that for you. So that's my suggestion. David's asking, does the data map to other tools besides CRM, such as eMoney, Holistiplan, etc.? Yes, it does. If I go to precisefp.com, I'm on it for the prompt guide. I'm going to go all the way to the bottom here, and there is a tab here that says integrations. And we have about 40 integrations here. So the ones that you listed are part of our integration list. We do have Holistiplan on here, e-money. So that way, once you do gather that data, you could export it to e-money. It would create a record in e-money or update a record in e-money if they already exist. But yes, way beyond just the CRM, it will build or send to other platforms as well. Amy says in eMoney, we have client budgets. Is there a way to pull numbers from eMoney and pre-fill a form? I would say we need to check the eMoney mapping table. If I go to the help and I go to the knowledge base, let me open this in a new tab. I would open up the eMoney mapping table that's on our help desk because that's going to show you what shares. And we'll just look for budget here. Looks like income, social security income, other income, children, family members, life insurance. So if it's not on this initial list, oops, I did not want to open that all the way up. If it's not in this initial list, what you would want to do is build onto the data set to account for those budget items because PreciseFP comes pre-built with all of these fields. But if you want to add to these, you would just need to do that through the data set. So it looks like we're getting closer. Let's see, credit cards, loans, mortgages, college expenses, variable expenses might be what we're looking for in regards to the budget items. So I would test it out and see if they do import over. You would just import them from PreciseFP. If you go to the accounts area and you click on the plus sign, you would want to choose import and choose eMoney and type in the first few letters of somebody's name. And then it would go ahead and import them in, and those fields would be included from the mapping table. All right, going back to our prompt guide, I'm going to go back to the session 3 area, and we showed those two parts. So we went ahead and built out that first part to grab all of that suitability information, and that second part to gather all that trust and beneficiary information. So I don't know about you, but I think that is pretty cool. I feel like that's an instant value add where, we can gather these questions offline and not in person and allow them that time and space to think of their responses. And since these are all questions that we're going to need to successfully open up an account, might as well make sure that we're not running into NIGOs when we're in the moment trying to do it, or we find out, we forgot to ask them their liquidity needs, and now we need to jump on the phone and bug them in the middle of their workday and ask them those questions. Making these fields required actually kind of forces them to do that. So that is really nice. And I'll go ahead and delete this one because it created it twice because I kept um, trying to build it so quickly. But just as a checklist, and I'll paste this into the chat so you have it. Because a lot of these things that I'm going to discuss in my checklist here are things that we have covered in previous sessions. But I nonetheless find it so valuable to just run through and make sure the welcome page is set up to have a nice, and in my personal suggestion, it would be a hyper personalized email. Take some things from their CRM that you know about them, put it into the Generate AI, and it'll create a nice little message that seems like it's designed just for them. Make sure if you have a team photo or a headshot or a logo, you put that nicely here on the welcome page and even on that thank you page. If you want to put your contact information, build that out as well. So that's something that I suggest. And also check those emails. So if you click on that email button, this is a default email message that's going to go to them. But try to be very clear and communicative here. Even, paste what we've been putting into the prompt and say, I'm going to need this information. I'm going to require it. Some of the fields you'll find will be required. You have to fill them out in order to move forward. That's just so that we could move speedily with your requests and make sure that we're able to successfully open up your account. Try to be very clear and communicative here in your email going out to them, and you'll see a very good increase in the completion rates. And then we talked about last week the periodic email reminders. Maybe they open it, but they are busy and they forgot about it. You can set up those email reminders so that it continues to message them about it to complete it. And we didn't talk about this one yet, a thank you email. Maybe you want a thank you email to go out after they complete the form. And I personally like that because I feel like sometimes you'll submit things, maybe it's to teachers or something, and you're not really quite sure if they got what you sent. And that thank you email can eliminate that email that comes in or that phone call that comes in of, I completed the form. Did you get it? If that thank you goes to them right away after they complete that engagement, then no questions will come up about it. And you'll just click on that tab there that says to toggle to that thank you and customize that further if you want. Otherwise, other things I would suggest to add or double check is disclaimers. Maybe your broker dealer has a disclaimer already. Take that disclaimer and then just think, do you want that disclaimer to go on the email that goes out to them? Do you want it to go on this engagement on the welcome page? Or maybe you want it to go on both, the page when they open it and the email when they receive that secure link. You can go ahead and include your disclaimer. Check branding, so logo, colors, headshot, things that I always talk about because I think it's so nice. And then always run that operation stress test. Like I said, at minimum, have at least two people review these fields and review the information in the drop downs, even just to make sure that they're accurate, that AI generated it successfully and in the order that you want, and it didn't miss anything. Like I said, maybe you want to add something onto this. Definitely that operations test will help you. So that's kind of my checklist that I like to run through when I do generate something using AI. Shanna's asking, can you combine templates to create an engagement? Yes, you definitely can. If you click on that plus sign to add in a new page, maybe you want to merge this template into another template or bring in pages from another template into this one. You would just click new page and choose import from and choose another template. And then you could just type in the first few letters of the template you're looking for. I know we integrated the risk tolerance questionnaire into our first session. Maybe we want to better fit that here, where we want that risk tolerance questionnaire to be built into this suitability form. I think that's a great idea. You could go ahead and import that in, and you'll notice those two engagements essentially have turned into one. So great, great question. All right. So just to kind of recap, just because I think what we just did is so cool. As a fiduciary, it's your obligation to act in your client's best interest. So that starts the moment they say yes, of course. But before you put any recommendations, it's nice to have this information on file, documented, paper trail, date, time, and stamp, so you have it. And then, you can kind of make your recommendations from there. And it is definitely the first thing that anyone's going to ask, is what did you collect and when did you collect it? So a completed suitability form like this is going to be your answer. And then those NIGOs, everyone hates those NIGOs, especially considering how fast the world moves today. Doing something like this, making sure that the fields are required, making sure that there is that help text is really going to make sure that we eliminate those NIGOs down the line. And then just for general, like awkwardness and not breaking that momentum. Once again, giving people the time and space in their home, to think about questions like the beneficiary division is a lot more effective than kind of putting the spotlight on them in an interrogation room and asking them to break out the beneficiary designations, all their information, and in case there is that family drama, kind of getting into that as well. All right. So on the topic of, compliance, I thought that a nice AI report to complement today's session would be kind of a measurement tool for compliance. So you just built the collection tool. Now let's show the measurement tool that's going to tell you how your whole book of business is doing against this same standard. So as you know, FINRA Know Your Client requires you to maintain essential facts about every single customer, and it's going to differ, by your firm, but the universal assumption is that Know Your Client data is collected. So I don't know if you've ever noticed, but in PreciseFP, when you go to the accounts area, there is this color coordination system that has a percentage inside that is going to correlate to the FINRA Know Your Client requirements. So you're going to have a percentage that appears there for each person. Now, the goal is to be in blue and have everyone be 100%. But you'll notice that's not always the case. So if you want to know why Alex is at 55%, you can click on Alex's name, choose on the data quality, and choose more, and you'll see it pop out what information is missing. And you'll be able to customize this as well. Maybe estate planning isn't a criteria that you want to include. You would want to customize that in your data quality score. But nonetheless, this is going to take that information and score it for you. So the prompt that I created for you in the session guide, and once again, I'll paste this session guide into the chat, is going to be asking the software to pull a search essentially for all of your clients and that data quality score. So that way you can see those scores in an Excel sheet or whatever you want. Maybe you just want to stay in the platform, but an Excel sheet is more common. And then you can kind of see where your data is at in bulk and kind of assign responsibilities accordingly in your next meeting if that's something that's a priority this year. But I'll go ahead and show you the prompt that I'm going to use here. The prompt is titled Incomplete Know Your Client Data Report. So it says create a report that shows all clients with a data quality score below 80. Now feel free to adjust this prompt as you see fit. Maybe you want to see everyone under 50, under 40, under 90. You can adjust this prompt. And I want to include the client name, email, advisor name, and current data quality score. And you want to be able to filter it by range. I'm going to go ahead and copy this, go back to PreciseFP, go back to the templates, but this time we'll focus on the report templates and choose My Templates. So go to the Templates tab, go to My Templates underneath Report Templates, click on that plus sign and choose Generate Using AI and paste that prompt right in. And then we'll create the template. And if you've joined us for these sessions before, we've created a report in every single session. And what the report will do initially is it will create that Excel sheet for you. And then you can kind of add to it or enhance it before you run it against your clients. So maybe you forgot a field, you can add that in manually, or that AI button will still be in here. So that way you could even have AI add it, just tell it in plain text. I also want to see their address. I also want to see their beneficiaries, whatever it is. You could enhance it from here. But if it's perfect, it's ready, it's good to go. This is the information that I want to see. I can go to generate, and this is where you can go ahead and isolate it by prospects, clients, or change that data quality score minimum right here. So maybe you want to see everyone who's 100 and under, 20 and under, whatever. You could go ahead and customize it further here. But if we choose generate report, it'll take a second here. And based on all of that criteria, it will create a report for us with all of that client information. So I thought that this report was a good complement to today's conversation. Because we are talking about compliance, you might want to pull up a report like this annually, quarterly, whatever you want, just to make sure that the data that you have on file is what you're looking for. All right. So what does PreciseFP's data quality score measure? It measures the completeness of a client profile relative to know your client requirements. So I just want to say that out loud again in case that is on a quiz to qualify for the certification. And, this report essentially is kind of like your compliance exposure list. These are the names you want to know before anyone else does. And another thing that I want to say out loud in regards to quiz questions would be, which of the following is a correct use of the AI report builder? And it could be something like this: creating a report that lists all clients with a data quality score less than 80. All right. So you'll notice we just created that prompt using plain language. That prompt is available to you in the guide, so you can save this forever and use it again in the future. And like I said, all of these prompts are only a starting point. Definitely adapt it to your firm, your office, and how you guys do things, so you can add to it or enhance it. All right. So we just created a nice structured compliance form using plain language. And we went ahead and, made sure that we're collecting this data off of the meeting time. So that way we're not killing that momentum and we're not having to call that client 2 days later and ask them to provide information that's missing, because we went ahead and put in those required fields, put in that help text. And, we're allowing them that time and space to think about those sensitive decisions like beneficiaries and maybe risk levels that they're comfortable in, and allowing them a private, encrypted, self-directed engagement that lets them think, call their spouse or look up a number and come back on their own time. And I know this definitely feels like more of a Ritz-Carlton experience where that information, or that's all happening behind the scenes. And you're not having them run to the car or call somebody in the moment. So those are the things that we just built. And next week is a session that is going to cover, if we go back over to the session accordion and we pull out session 4, this one is going to go more into annual review prep and then even feedback in regards to maybe we want to send a follow-up survey to kind of assess how the meeting went. We'll be building that out next week. So definitely, think about your cadence, because we can do 3 months, 6 months, annually, and just kind of check in with clients. Otherwise, before next session, run the Know Your Client Data Quality Report on your book of business. Find your 3 lowest scores and, try to send them a pre-filled engagement, and they can give you the rest of the information that's missing, and you can get that exported everywhere else across your tech stack. And then maybe you just onboarded a client and you think the suitability form would be an excellent next step. Go ahead and build out your suitability form and then get those compliance questions on file. All right, let me once over the questions here, see if I missed anything. Amy says DocuSign is an integration. Can you add a field for a client to sign a form? The question is, let's say we go back to our suitability form. If we have DocuSign turned on, can you get that done? And I know if you didn't know, at least PreciseFP also has a compliant signature feature that meets all of the signature requirements. You would just want to make sure your broker dealer approves it. But let's say I add in a field here for e-signature. So this one is allowing you to put in PreciseFP's e-signature. I don't know if it's because I don't have DocuSign turned on. Maybe that's why the DocuSign option isn't available. Otherwise, I would need to double check that for you. But you can put in PreciseFP's complimentary signature feature into your forms. Another question regarding email reminders. Are you able to set the frequency and then also set conditions? So the reminders that haven't been started. Exactly correct. That is exactly what we're talking about for the email reminders. If we go to the emails tab here, let me enable the periodic email reminders and go to that tab. You'll notice here it allows you to set that frequency. So by default, this is going to go send this email every 5 days for 30 days, but definitely change that. Maybe you want it to go out every 2 days for the next 2 weeks. You can go ahead and do that. And really, you don't have to chase adults for their information. Let me know how today's session was. I don't know if you've ever thought about or seen a suitability form using PreciseFP, but I know I thought it was absolutely brilliant when I saw it, and I was like, I just have to teach this in the AI series. So hopefully it added some value to your firm, and you can think about if you want to use it and how you want to enhance it. And I look forward to seeing you guys all next week. And feel free to bookmark that companion guide, open it, use it, and continue to enhance those prompts even further than how they are right now. And even as you build your own prompts in the future, paste those prompts into your chat GPT and Claude and say, here's an example prompt, build another one for this person or for this purpose. And I think it's a great starting point to making great prompts in the future as well. All right, but otherwise, thank you all so much for your time today. Have a great upcoming weekend and upcoming holiday, and I look forward to seeing you all again next week. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.